like to welcome you to yet another edition of Talking with Colerain Township, Waycross Community Media's community service talk show in which we talk everything your township. And I'm very fortunate to have with us tonight at the round table Jim Rowan, Township Administrator. Jim, glad you could join us for 2016.
Jason, thanks for having me. It's always good to be on the show.
It's always great to have you over here because we got a lot to talk about, and it's always a pleasure to have somebody to talk new and important things. But before we get to the new, just like they always say, bring out the old and bring in the new, let's recap 2015 for those who are new residents or wanted to, especially we have to look back at what we've done. We've accomplished a lot in Colerain this past year.
Absolutely. Well, 2015 was what I would consider a challenging year. We saw some cutbacks in our parks as a result of the JED failing in 2014.
Correct.
And we learned some things from those cutbacks, recognizing that we didn't have the staffing necessary to maintain them to the standards that our community expects. We heard a lot and we've listened a lot. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do in 2016 different as it relates to maintaining our parks. Our initiatives within the community continued. Mm-hmm. We got our CMHA funding for the John Rose project.
Yes.
And we're looking forward to breaking ground this spring on that senior living facility. Our efforts on community revitalization continue, as evidenced by a recent article on Cincinnati.com and in the Northwest Press regarding the efforts of Mr. Birkenhauer and all the economic development that we're seeing throughout the township, mm-hmm. from the new Chick-fil-A that's coming online, and there's just a lot of excitement happening within the township. They finally finished the construction at 275 and Colerain Avenue, and we've started to see traffic flow much smoother in that area.
And I will admit, it is much better as you're coming off, so kudos to everyone there.
It is, and we're excited, and we'll see the Ronald Reagan Bridge painting finish in 2016. They weren't able to get it all finished in 2015. Galbraith Road opened up, which was a blessing to many of those that travel on Galbraith Road, and we're going to see some construction happen on Pippin Road this year.
Oh.
It's a county project. It's
okay.
It's not a township project, but you are starting to see a lot of improvements. The telephone poles at Colerain and Springdale will be coming down soon as a result of the underground utility project.
Correct.
Noodles and Company and First Watch will be opening soon. So there's a lot of excitement going in the economic development realm. We continue our efforts on the Heroin Task Force and our quick response team within our public safety departments to try to provide a greater service to our community and try to deal with this epidemic that's plaguing the nation. And I feel really comfortable with what our public safety folks are doing as it relates to that.
I was going to say, we have just seen, Dan take control, that'd be Dan Malloy, in moving this forward. And now with Mr. Dieters leaving and going to the county, he's taking those same initiatives that were instilled in our township and moving them down county-wide. How do you feel as a kind of like the star of bringing that down? Well,
it is exciting, and when you've got a team of leaders that are innovative like my team, whether you talk about Director Malloy and what he's doing with regards to the Heroin Task Force, or my HR and accounting director who's working on the We Thrive initiative, it's all about best in class, and we're doing everything we can to serve the residents and businesses of this township. And if there's things that we can do and share that with other communities, it's very exciting for us. We talked in the last session about some of the challenges that we have in just meeting the needs of our community with regards to tall grass and weeds and mm-hmm. property maintenance issues. And I talked then about some of the new process improvements that we've put in place. And I'm happy to report that we're finally getting through that backlog, and we are geared up and ready to hit the ground running come April this year. When those complaints start to come in, we're going to get on top of them and address them. 2016 is going to bring about a lot of exciting things. We'll be looking to update our comprehensive plan and integrate our land use and our streetscape plan in that, which will impact our zoning within the township, probably update our zoning resolution. Okay. That plan is several years old, so we're looking forward to getting that off the ground. We have our new planner on board, so zoning is finally staffed at 100%.
I was just going to say, Jenna seems to have a little bit of, Ms. LeCount now has a little bit of breathing room to be able to do a little bit more of what she's been asked.
She does, and when you look at the long-term planning with the comp plan and just the day-to-day development, I mean, it's a very busy department.
Sure.
And that's a good thing. So we'll be hitting the ground running with the comp plan this year. I spoke a little bit ago about some of what we learned last year with the cutbacks in the parks.
Yes.
And, it's very unfortunate anytime you have to cut in local government. We feel like we've done a good job of managing the budget and right-sizing the budget. We're down 54% in administrative staff for non-safety departments as when I was hired. Our general fund balances, or our general fund budget for 2015 is $1 million less than it was in 2014. So we have absorbed several cuts. And really to think about additional cuts would really deteriorate what we're trying to do to make Colerain a best-in-class community. So as a result of that, we're going to reinstate those seasonal park workers this year so we can bring our parks back to pristine condition, provide a safe place for our residents and our community to enjoy. I'm hoping it's not short-lived, and I'll talk a little bit about what's going to need to happen for us to be able to sustain that program. We increased our rates last year or in 2015 for our shelters and our ball fields. And as a result of that, we saw some challenges with not ball games in our parks. We were able to partner with the Colerain Athletic Association for Groesbeck Park, but we really lost that community opportunity, that community engagement in some of our other parks. So we have reinstated the 2014 fee schedule so that we can bring those games back into our parks. For those that visit Colerain or Heritage, they can enjoy some of those athletic events that are going on.
Do you think that's going to be of big help? I mean, I think you're hearing a lot of people say, we do utilize the parks, or we used to utilize the parks. Do you think by reverting to this 2014, and hopefully this will be a benefit, to bring more people?
I think so. And, we still have the parking permit program that may or may not deter, and I'll talk a little bit about what the future may hold for that as well. But just little things that I pick up on, like we've cut away the portalettes after October 1st. It's a cost-saving measure. Sure. And I had a gentleman ask me this week, there are people that still utilize the parks after October 1. Can we have them reinstated? And I hear them loud and clear, but I also have a responsibility to balance the budget. And we'll do what we can in 2016 to get our message out, to talk about the need. And hopefully come 2017, we might be able to see a number of items be reinstated as it relates to our parks.
And I know we're circling around, and I know where we need to go, and a lot of this stems from, again, parks being one of these, is issue 3 coming up here soon, which is going to be on the ballot in March. And, a lot of people don't like to see something new on the ballot, especially when it becomes as a tax issue like this. But as we saw, let's go back 2015, June 2nd, where we had the focus group about these issues in which we're going to be talking about, which were roads, parks, and your senior center.
Absolutely.
Were those things that kind of fed the fuel to go where we needed to go today?
I think there are several things. Going back to 2012, when we started making the budget reductions, our commitment to the community was we want to make sure that our budget is in good shape and we are fiscally aligned before we ask our community for more funding. And then, of course, 2014, we tried the JED. It wasn't successful. So we're to the point now that the only other course of action we have is to ask for funding through a tax levy. Now, with saying that, there's been some positive things happen that should offset that increased cost to our community. For instance, the Northwest School District passed their bond issue this past November. Part of that bond issue reduced their millage. And when you look at the savings that a $100,000 home is going to see as a result of that millage reduction, along with what an annual residential property is going to see as a result of this waste and recycling contract that we were able to bargain down the garbage rates, it's basically going to be a cost savings if issue 3 is passed. I realize it's a different tax, but we've tried to do some things to offset as an overall community, to offset the burden on our residents. And while I had no control over what Northwest Schools did, the initiative to do the waste and recycling contract allowed us to generate some significant savings. And those are the types of things that we want to do for our community so that when we do ask them for additional funding, we can at least demonstrate that we've done what we can to stretch their dollars as much as we can.
Sure.
So, issue 3, it simply stated, is a $2 million levy that will provide much needed funding for our roads, our parks, and our senior center. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about roads and parks. Where the community center comes in is that we generate rental income off that community center in excess of $100,000 a year right now that stays within that center, that provides the contract with the YMCA and the Council on Aging and all the programming for our seniors. That money could be deferred to roads or parks if we want to, and that's not what we want to do, because we believe to be best in class, you have to have programs for your seniors, programs for your kids. So when we think about this levy is going to allow us to fix our roads, protect our parks, and really protect that revenue source that's currently there to fund those programs. So if it passes, we want to expand that relationship with the YMCA. That's their business. They know how to offer senior programming. Correct. So let's take that partnership, continue it, provide some upgrades to the center. If you've been through the center, on the senior center side, the carpet needs to be upgraded. There are some capital upgrades that need to happen. And I would ask that we put some money into the center to upgrade it and give those seniors a great place to come and network and enjoy each other.
I think especially if you go by as often, you do see people utilizing it. That's the idea. There is utilization to this facility. It's not a vacant building. It's not just sitting there. There is a purpose and utility for it.
There absolutely is, and I had a chance to attend one of their Christmas luncheons, and it was packed, hundreds of people in that center. And it's a real asset that we have as a community, and I would like to see us be able to do some things to not only protect the programming, but also to give them some capital upgrades and do some things for the seniors that we've had to take away for the past couple of years.
Sure.
Our parks, it takes staffing to maintain our parks. We're not talking about expanding parks, but we have some playgrounds that need to be upgraded and fixed and replaced. We have, currently we're sitting on 4 vacant positions that we've not backfilled until we find out what the future state is. We need those positions not only for our road maintenance crews to do potholes and fixing patches and doing snow removal, but we need people in the parks to be able to offer programs, whether it's reinstating the 4th of July or bringing back summer camp programs, or just providing a workforce there to keep those parks in pristine condition. So we want to be able to bring some of those personnel back and to be able to continue to operate our existing snow routes, but also expand some of our maintenance efforts in our roads. So that's going to help us to be able to do that. But I will say that 70% of this levy is going right back into the streets.
Got it.
And we just recently settled the Rumpke lawsuit.
Correct.
That's going to generate about $1.75 million more a year in revenue. Our plan is to take that $1.75 million plus $1.5 million from this levy and put that into roads. So that leaves us about $600,000 in this levy to do the things I just talked about, with basically reinstating staff. We got to upgrade some of our capital equipment. Some of our trucks are getting in bad shape. Okay. We have to do a lot to just maintain our roads and our park system. So we need some funding there as well, because our public services department has also experienced loss of TPP revenue and things of that nature. So we need to be able to sustain our operations. So we need a portion of that levy to be able to do that. But the majority of it, like I said, 70% is going right back into the road program. And the nice thing about this, Jason, it's a 5-year levy. So we're going to have the chance to come back to our community in 5 years. And if we've managed these funds appropriately, we should be able to get a renewal and to be able to continue our efforts to bring our roads back up to a great condition.
Do you think that, again, we've been looking at roads for at least 2 years. We've been talking about how they've been going down. When we had Mr. Lang on not too long ago, I believe that was midsummer, talking about, and he was concerned about the roads still even then. Are we hoping that by year 5 of this levy, if it were to pass, that at least a large alleviation of what you are working towards will be tended to? Or what is your forecast on that?
Well, I think there's 2 things that need to happen. A is we need to be able to provide some funding for roads so that we can actually contract out resurfacing and reconstruction. And if we can put that $3.2 million or so into that effort, and if I can bring back some of those road workers that I'm currently holding, I can deploy more staff to be able to crack seal and patch and fix some of our B roads so that we can maintain them longer. Right now, with having to cut back staff, I don't have the staff to be able to maintain even my B roads. So if I can restore some of those personnel, get them out maintaining and protecting the roads that are in the B class, take the funding here and maybe attack the C class to be able to get some of those roads that are about to fail resurfaced before they do fail, then that's going to help us get a hold of the curve. There's a couple things that we're looking at here. We have what we call SCIP funding, which is the State Capital Improvement Program. And this is money where we can actually pledge 30 or 40% of the project cost and get a state matching grant. We have several roads that are in a reconstruction category that need to be totally taken out all the way down to the gravel and resurfaced. You can't do that with a small amount of money. So we need to leverage those grants. So this $3.2 million is going to generate enough funding that's going to allow us to go out and pave approximately 5 miles of road a year and then take some matching grants and reconstruct streets. So it's really going to be kind of a three-prong effect.
Sure.
We're going to repave and resurface, we're going to reconstruct with matching grants, and then we're going to redeploy our staff to do the maintenance necessary to stretch those roads even longer. I think if we're able to do all three of those things in 5 years, you're going to start to see a difference in our roads, and it's going to encourage people that if we want to continue this momentum forward, we're going to need to have that renewed. But right now, let's get it passed. Let us demonstrate our commitment to doing this. If you look back to 2001 when we had the 1 mil road levy, our roads were rated a 70.1 or satisfactory to good. Now we're at a 40, and that's poor. So you can think about that 14-year period, 15-year period that we have lost momentum in our road program. Roads last 15 to 20 years, so you have to have a dedicated funding source. So I believe that if our community gives us the opportunity to demonstrate our goodwill, we will demonstrate that we're able to fix our roads, protect our parks, and save our senior center. And we're going to give the community something back. We're going to reinstate the 4th of July in 2017. That's a celebration that our community has asked for since we cut it.
Sure.
We're going to look at reinstating those park programs. The parking permit program, it generates about $80,000 a year in revenue. We probably spend close to $40,000 to make it happen. There's not a lot of money there. Our commitment is if this thing passes, we're going to eliminate that parking permit program beginning in 2017. Why 2017? Because if it passes on March 15th, we don't start collecting money till 2017. But we'll kick those programs off. It'll help us stabilize our rental rates. It's going to do a lot of things to reinstate funding to areas that we used to have that we're no longer able to maintain.
Do you feel that this is going to be a very difficult levy to pass, considering it's, again, we're getting ramped up into a presidential election year? I mean, you could have put this in November, but I know that you're wanting to go forward quicker. The sooner you know about this, the sooner you can start budgeting again for what you plan on doing in 2017. Do you find that there's going to be some stumbling blocks with this?
Well, I think anytime you ask for more taxes, it's always challenging. So you trust that the decisions you've made to get you to this point, you've earned that public trust that we're spending your money, we're doing everything we can to look out for the bottom line, and we hope that we can do a better job of educating the need. We have 3 community meetings set up, one for next Tuesday, the 26th at 7:30 at Houston Conference Center. We have February 2nd at 7:30 at Struble Elementary, and we have February 9th at 7:30 at Pleasant Run Elementary. On top of that, we're doing a lot of outreach to individual groups, and it's all about education. We're going to be mailing a newsletter to all residents within the township, explaining the issue, trying to keep it simple. We've got a guest column coming on the paper next week. So we're going to do everything we can to educate our community that we have this need, and hopefully they'll show up on March 15th and support us.
Not to bring up bad tidings, but when the JED did not pass, do you feel that you're learning from the mistakes? I'll use quotes on mistakes. I don't think there's anything mistaken that went through with the process, but do you think you've learned anything from what happened there to what can make this possible passage a success?
Well, I think a couple things. I think with the JED was a unique opportunity to put a tax on that was not going to impact your residents. as much as that sounds like a good idea, the truth of the matter was there was a lot of opposition because they felt it was an unfair tax. And a lot of those same people that opposed it are now in support of this issue. So we're starting to see momentum grow from those that oppose the JED and saying that even though this is going to increase my taxes, it's the fair thing to do. So I think by listening to the community and saying, give us a shot, I think that's one thing. The other thing we heard is that we didn't do a very good job of educating the community on the JED. The JED was very complicated.
Sure.
Property tax is pretty plain and simple. So we need to be able to demonstrate that we have a plan, this is how we're going to use the money, and the fact that it's a 5-year levy and not a continuing levy, it's going to give the community the opportunity to evaluate how we spent their money and then make a decision 5 years from now as to whether they continue to support us.
What made you choose 5 years?
Well, actually, our goal was to do continuing.
Okay.
And unfortunately, this type of levy cannot be done for a continuing period of time. It only allowed it to be done for 5 years. So it required us to call a last-minute board meeting to modify the resolution to reduce it to 5 years. And I'm not a real proponent of 5-year levies because, as I said earlier, this is a long-term funding need that is there.
Correct.
And to have to repeat ourselves every 5 years, it takes a lot of resources and time to do that. But it also keeps us accountable to the residents. And I always say that if it's a continuing levy, there's still accountability because you decide who you put in office every 2 years. So this has got a double accountability. It's the people they elect to make sure we're doing what we say we're going to do, and it's their ability to vote on this every 5 years.
So again, for those who are interested, again, there were 3 meetings coming up, January 26th at Houston Learning Center, the 2nd at 7:30 at Struble Elementary, and February 9th at Pleasant Run Elementary. So plus this information that you're getting here, getting all sorts of information out about this issue. Before we wrap up today, we've noticed some changes as, of course, going on. I mentioned earlier that Mr. Dieter has left, unfortunately, but for us, unfortunately, for the county, good for them. I mean,
Sure.
it was a very positive role for Mr. Dieter to go forward, which leaves a vacancy open, which is something I've never seen, and I'm sure that you not have seen as well. The process is that people are sending in applications to become your next trustee to fill this vacant space. How is that going?
Well, I think I've received 6 applications so far. The deadline to apply is Tuesday the 26th at 4 o'clock. Those applications can be sent to my attention at 4200 Springdale Road or emailed to me at jrowan@colerain.org. As soon as I receive the applications, I forward those to Trustee Ritter and Trustee Insko. They'll be reviewing those applications, and then by the end of January, they will each submit one name to me to schedule an interview before the board.
Okay.
And then, assuming that Mr. Insko and Mr. Ritter agree on a candidate, they would be appointed at the February, at a meeting early in February. They have 30 days to make an appointment.
Okay.
So by February 7th, they have to make the appointment. If for whatever reason they don't agree, then it goes to Mr. Dieter's committee, who can make the appointment on February the 8th. Either way, we're hoping that the member is seated at the February 9th board meeting.
Okay, so we should see, knock on wood, a new face on the DS.
We
at
will,
this point.
absolutely.
With this being a very different and unique situation as administrator, how do you feel about this? I mean, and I'm sure you've spoken with both Mr. Insko and Mr. Ritter about this and how they feel about this.
Sure.
It is a unique situation completely.
It is. Well, I've been asked, who would you like as trustee? From my perspective, I work for the board.
Right.
I'm here to serve the residents. So it doesn't matter who they appoint. I'm going to do everything I can to continue to serve the board and the residents to the best of my capacity.
Well, again, watch on Waycross. You can definitely see the meetings now that we're streaming beautifully so that we can get everything to you. So we should see somebody new, and hopefully a new face will be brought on. We'll bring them on and talk about what's going on.
Sounds great.
Well, Mr. Rowan, I want to thank you, of course, for braving the weather. I'll roll my eyes at that. It is a wonderful day today. It wasn't yesterday. So with that, I think we will conclude winter's edition here of Talking with Colerain Township. I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, I want to thank you for joining us as well. Of course, if you've enjoyed this discussion and any others, you can always go back and look at our archives or be a part of the crew and join on and learn what's going on right as you're producing the program. 825-2429 is our number. You can get all the information to learn a new program, learn a new skill, do something new. It's 2016, new year, try something. I'm Jason Grzgorek, Waycross Community Media's Government Access Coordinator, giving you the opportunity to talk with Colerain Township. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.